This is Standing Watch. And now, Evangelist Norbert Link.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. When you turn on the news these days, it seems like all you're hearing about are the events in Charlottesville, Mr. Trump's response, and then the reaction to Mr. Trump's response. At the end of the program, I'm going to make some personal observations, but first let me take you back to the events, how they were unfolding. And here's an article by Deutsche Welle dated August 13 saying this. At least one person died, Heather Hare, and 19 others were injured when a car drove into a crowd of counter-protesters at a violence-ridden right-wing rally in Charlottesville in the U.S. state of Virginia on Saturday. Footage showed the car slowing down before accelerating towards the crowd, sending people flying and seemingly crushing one person between two other stationary cars. The silver sedan then reversed away rapidly. Police later arrested a 20-year-old man who was allegedly the driver. He was being charged with multiple offenses, including second-degree murder. Now, there's even a federal statute, and if he is charged under that, he could get the death penalty. As many as 6,000 protesters, including supporters of the Ku Klux Klan, KKK, descended on the university town of Charlottesville on Saturday to protest the removal of a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee from a public park. Rally organizer Jason Kessler described Robert E. Lee as a symbol of white people, threatened by immigration and ethnic cleansing. Now, the fact that somebody puts a label on General Lee doesn't make it right. But I want you to remember that we were talking about 6,000 protesters. Now, the Times of Israel wrote on August 13, among the 500 white supremacists out of the 6,000, were men and women bearing signs like Jews are Satan's children. There were Nazi flags. There were men all in black, t-shirts and slacks and army boots and helmets, jogging along with plastic shields. There were the men who sang of blood and soil. They shouted Jew every time the name of Charlottesville's Jewish mayor, Michael Signer, was mentioned. And of course, the hostility was not confined to Jews. As targets, Jews were not even preeminent. Blacks were. The white supremacists shouted out the N-word as drivers passed by. Now, President Trump's initial response was that he condemned the hate and bigotry on many sides. And he repeated, on many sides. Donald Trump's daughter, Ivanka, tweeted on Sunday that there, and I quote, was no place in society for racism, white supremacy, and neo-Nazis. Now, what about the left? Breitbart wrote on August 12, originally built as a protest in favor of free speech, alongside the disdain over the removal of Confederate statues in the city, the alt-right rally found itself transformed into a torch-wielding, Nazi flag-waving dereliction of American values. What transpired amounted to a disgusting and unwelcome throwback to ideas and rhetoric. While many media minutes and deliberations will be afforded to the extreme right, almost none will be dedicated to the extreme left. It can be said with authority that while Republicans and conservatives are very swift to decry extremists claiming to act in the name of their causes, the left do no such thing. In fact, they continue to fund and support anti-Fascist and radical elements in their ranks. Now, you might say that's Breitbart, but what about other papers? Here is Newsweek's saying on August 13, it's unclear who or how many people are organizing the anti-fascist movement. The secretive U.S. effort has been traced to militant leftist movements in Germany, Italy, and Spain before World War II. Anti-fascist protesters have been linked to violent protests against the far right. Donald Trump's inauguration, for example, police arrested more than 200 people after protesters dressed in black smashed local windows, set some cars on fire, and attacked law enforcement officials on the streets of Washington, D.C. This happened during Donald Trump's inauguration. The article goes on to say, in its upcoming September issue, The Atlantic describes the anti-fascist movement as violent. And it is the appearance, at least, that anti-fascist movement people were there, part of the counter-demonstration in Charlottesville. JTA wrote on August 17, is it okay to punch a Nazi in the face? That's a question animating much of the discussion of Saturday's rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, which quickly devolved into a brawl between rally-goers and a contingent of anti-fascist counter-protesters. Leaders and activists are divided on whether physically attacking white supremacists is justified simply because they are supremacists. Some have celebrated the anti-fascist activists for standing up to hate, but others have condemned them, alongside the neo-Nazis, for engaging in violence. I'll have a few things to say about violence in a moment. But first of all, let's point out that subsequently on Monday, Donald Trump specifically condemned white supremacists and neo-Nazis for the violence in Charlottesville. But then this happened. AFP wrote on August 16. US President Donald Trump sparked another political firestorm Tuesday when he doubled down on his initial response to the violent rally in Charlottesville, saying there was blame on both sides. The Republican president, who 1 day ago solemnly denounced racism and singled out the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis as criminals and thugs, also hit out at what he called the alt-left. I think there is blame on both sides, Trump said. You had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say it. But I'll say it right now, Trump continued. What about the alt-left that came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? But he also said that while there were troublemakers at the rally, there were also good people on both sides, including many people there to innocently protest and very legally protest the removal of a very important statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. I wonder, is it George Washington next? And is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? He said angrily, referring to the fact they owned slaves. And believe it or not, subsequently it was already suggested to remove statues of George Washington. And then there was a comment made like, oh well, Nazi Germany, of course they had Adolf Hitler, but today in Germany there are no statues of Adolf Hitler. Well, to even try to compare Robert E. Lee with Adolf Hitler is just incredibly preposterous. Videos showed that there were cheering anti-right protesters illegally destroying the statue of Robert E. Lee. And this is a disgrace. And as President Trump rightly pointed out, what they are trying to do is to rewrite history. Robert E. Lee is as much part of American history as, let's say, Abraham Lincoln. And I'm not going to just sit there and have them remove the statue of Robert E. Lee. And as a consequence, I'm going to show you a statue of Robert E. Lee, which I possess. And this statue shows Robert E. Lee. Now, I'm not taking sides. I'm not saying that I prefer the South over the North. That's not the point. The point is this is a monument of American history. And as a consequence, I have another statue, which I'm going to show you now. It is a statue of a soldier, a leader of the North. And I am putting them side by side. Now, the one person has a sword in his hand, the other person has a pipe in his hand. Now, I'm not saying that I am now endorsing taking up the sword or smoking. I'm showing you the statues just for what they are. Monuments of history, and we shouldn't allow anybody to try to rewrite the American history. Now, the criticism of Donald Trump for his comments was just stunning. Here's an article by Deutsche Welle from August 16. German Justice Minister Heiko Maas criticized Trump's latest response to the violence. On Monday, German Chancellor Angela Merkel told broadcaster Phoenix that clear action was needed to combat far-right extremism. She noted that Germany had quite a lot to do at home ourselves to address a recent rise in anti-Semitism. Republican Senator Marco Rubio addressed Trump in a 6-stage tweet, saying he could not allow white supremacists to share only part of the blame. Newsmax wrote on August 15 that Mitt Romney on Tuesday rejected President Donald Trump's statement both sides were responsible for the violence in Charlottesville. John McCain made similar statements on Twitter. Fox News wrote on August 16 that Steve Stivers, chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee, tweeted Tuesday after Trump's comments, "White supremacists and neo-Nazis are evil and shouldn't be defended." Stivers' comments were noteworthy considering he leads House Republicans' campaign arm. The internal tensions come as a party is preparing for the 2018 midterm elections. Now, Trump's statements accelerated an exodus of business executives from 2 advisory councils, which Trump in turn disbanded as they were coming apart. Both former Presidents Bush slammed President Trump without mentioning him by name, and so did Governor John Kasich and Senator Lindsey Graham. Now, Fox News wrote on August 17 that President Trump fired back Thursday, tweeting this: "Publicity-seeking Lindsey Graham falsely stated that I said there is moral equivalency between the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and people like Ms. Hare, such a disgusting lie." Now, it is interesting, an article was published this morning by Der Stern magazine over there in Germany, to the effect that Shepard Smith, Fox moderator, tried to get any Republican governor or senator to come on his program to defend Mr. Trump's statements, and he said he couldn't find anyone. Now, I'm sure there must be some who are in line with what Mr. Trump has been saying, but why are they not willing to speak up publicly? Is it because of the midterm elections coming up in 2018? Now, let me just give you some personal observations here. First of all, violence is deplorable and must be strongly condemned, regardless of whether it's originating from the right or the left or wherever. Psalm 11, verse 5 says, "The Lord tests the righteous, but the wicked and the one who loves violence, his soul hates." That is why I'm giving you advice. Stay far away from any violent demonstration. And I don't care what's the cause, I don't care what's the originator, I don't care where it's taking place, why it's taking place. Stay away from it, totally and completely. Now, Mr. Trump is, in my mind, without any question, correct in regards to many of the comments he made pertaining to the incident in Charlottesville. But he is saying things which are not politically, quote-unquote, expedient and which are not approved by politicians and the mass media around the world. The US media in particular, anxious to find fault with President Trump, is focusing on the extreme violent right without mentioning the extreme violent left. During the encounter in Charlottesville, in addition to disgusting masked KKK troublemakers from the far right and others, troublemakers from the far left were also seen on video with clubs in their hands, and they were also masked. None of that should have a place in the United States of America, but in a divided country, violent elements from extreme movements have their field day. My father, who fought in World War II in Russia, he died several years ago with the blessed age of 95, told me many times that when Hitler came to power, there were all these fights going on the street between right-wingers and left-wingers, extreme right and extreme left. And they had these battles, these fights, the communists against the Nazis, where the Nazis won. But of course, this wasn't healthy for the country at all. Now we see that President Trump is losing more and more support, including from Republicans, and sometimes even for the wrong reasons, such as the incident in Charlottesville. And this cannot be healthy for the country either. The internal and domestic upheaval is matched and even magnified by external and international problems. So where will all of this lead? You know, the Bible has prophesied that lawlessness will abound in these end times. Here's a free booklet. You might want to ask for a free copy of it, because it shows you from the pages of the Bible that we will encounter more and more violence and lawlessness, including in the United States of America. And then we have another booklet prepared. It's also free of charge. The Fall and Rise of Britain and America. Yes, Britain and America will fall. The downfall is prophesied, but they will also rise again. America will become great again. But certain things will have to happen first. And it's not going to happen overnight. So let me ask you one more time to ask for these free booklets, free of charge. They will help you understanding what is really going on in your country. And we are going to keep you apprised over and about events which are of extreme importance for you and for everyone who is living in this world.
Standing Watch is a presentation by The Church of the Eternal God, P.O. Box 270519, San Diego, California 92198. More information is also available at our website, eternalgod.org.